So, welcome to Authentic Conversations podcast. I am your host, Adele Bernard from Transition Clarity. And today our guest will be Rob Nicholls. Rob is a husband, father of two boys, an artist, a mystic, a yoga instructor, a writer, and a book author. Today we'll be talking about his journey to how he wrote his book, The Boat of Ra, Sacred Egyptians Reimagined.
Yeah.
Welcome, Rob.
Thanks for inviting me. This is exciting.
Yeah. So let's just talk a little bit about who you are, your journey to how you became you in present day.
In a nutshell, I was born in Windsor, Ontario. I moved to Calgary when I was 2 years old, so I've been here the whole time. I'm 53 now. I've always been interested in art, good at art, as long as I can remember. So that's kind of been one constant throughout my whole life. So I ended up going, I was really into like skateboarding and science fiction and stuff when I was young, when I was like 15, 16, and then ended up going to the Alberta College of Art and Design when I was like 19, here in Calgary, which is now called the Alberta. They changed the name anyway. I used to call it ACAC, is where I used to go. So
Right.
I ended up getting a degree in fine art oil painting there. Around that same time, I got interested in mysticism and meditation. So I became a member of the Amorc Rosicrucian group. So the monographs where you learn through the mail. And then I actually lived in Vancouver for a while, and I was part of a lodge out there. So I was like an officer and got quite into it then. Then I was became so fascinated with Egypt specifically, that I decided, hey, why don't I just go and check it out myself? And no one wanted to join me, so I just went by myself to Egypt in 1995, and Egypt and Jordan and Israel. So that was quite the undertaking, but it all went smooth, and I've got to. Well, maybe I'll tied in the beginning of my book is my intro of how my first day in Egypt went. But
Okay.
we'll get back to that in a second. So still just the overview. Yeah, from Vancouver, came back to Calgary, various jobs, did some murals, worked for a mural company and kept making art. Then I went to India and Nepal, had some amazing experiences there. Kind of got me interested in Tibetan Buddhism and meditation again, and yoga. So the gist of yoga, I started in India itself, and then I started investigating different styles of yoga in Calgary, and I basically ended up with Ashtanga yoga, which is the most kind of rigorous kind of yoga, where it's very physical and moves very fast.
Yeah.
So I became a teacher in 2001 and taught till just before the pandemic. Basically, it was starting to wind down, but had a good 17-year run and really enjoyed that. So throughout that whole time, I'd always been still dabbling in art, but I had got married and have two children and a golden retriever. And during the pandemic, the first year we're all like, what's going on or whatever. And it was kind of the first time I stopped doing yoga and just started like skateboarding again and hanging out. But then the second year, I'm like, okay, this seems to be an ongoing thing here. So I'm going to use this gift of time to try to create something. Because for 25 years, I've been reading books about Egypt and mysticism, and I'm also a member of the Freemasons. I'm a 32nd degree Freemason.
Mm-hmm.
So I just have all this information and all these books, and I just wanted to like digest it for myself personally, but also just offer to people a nice way to just get into this without being overwhelmed by how much there is out there on this stuff. So I feel like I distilled it down into bite-sized bits that are hopefully interesting and hold people attention with the art itself. So that I did all the illustrations and the writing itself. So yeah, so back to where we were. So yeah, I just started doing these drawings, and I'm mostly known as an oil painter, and I haven't really drawn since I was like 16 years old or something, just kind of where it began, copying comic books and stuff like that. So this pointillism idea of like drawing with dots, you see here, it's just like, if you look close, there's like, it's made up of lots of little dots, right?
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm not the first person to do that, but like, this is kind of a fresh approach to making art. So after I've done many of these, I realized I used to do airbrushing, where you spray the paint. So I feel like I'm airbrushing with
Dots.
dots, but it's a much slower process. Like sometimes I'll be like, family's watching TV or something, and I'm like doing dots for 4 hours, just filling up areas.
So that's fascinating to me, because you're not the only one that's moving into dots as artists. And I'm like, is this a new trend? Is this a new download that artists are getting? Like it's fascinating. And as the viewers can see, your art's beautiful behind you. So
yeah, there's some there. Here's a hardcover version of my book. So that's got one of my drawings on the front, and they're from Amazon as well. It gets a little pricey. The hardcover is for serious collectors, but the regular one, with shipping, ends up being like $22 Canadian or something like that. So quite reasonable. So yeah, I just started transitioning back into art, and like, so I made this t-shirt's got my art on it. So I'm kind of slowly working in the background with an idea of having like a fashion line or a tie-in of t-shirts and maybe hats and hoodies and stuff like that on the side to kind of coincide with the launch of the book. I'm having my official art opening book release next week in Calgary at the 500 Collective. So November 25th to 27th, but the main opening night will be 4 till 10 p.m. next Friday, November 25th.
Yeah.
And the address, I'll just plug real quick, is 321 50th Ave, Southeast Calgary. So there'll be wine and crackers and art, and I'm doing with another artist called Brent King, who does sculptures where he welds skateboard bearings together, and it's quite interesting. But somehow our art, I think, works together. It's going to be fun.
Well, and that's just a note. If people are going to listen to this before the 24th or the 25th weekend, is that, get down and see them at the gallery. So, but if you're after, you'll just have to buy his book. But anyways, so let's get back to, so here you are again, another person in transition as they got forced into it. Before it was like, oh, I think I'll dabble in this. I'll dabble in that. Oh, I think I'll go travel, right? And you're making conscious choices to do these things. And then all of a sudden, we're all in this shutdown, and you're like, well, if I can't do the job I've been doing for 17 years, what can I do?
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like that fire reignited of like, well, I used to do art. I'll just pick up a pencil. Let's see where this goes. And it's that conscious and unconscious working together. As we both know, as a mystic, they're always intertwined, right?
Sure.
And you're saying, okay, so if my heart's calling me to pick up the pencil and get a piece of paper, where is this going? Where am I evolving to? And so talk about a little bit of that journey of like that reawakening of something that you had let go dormant for a while, and say, well, maybe it shouldn't be dormant. Maybe I should be,
Yeah, well, with teaching yoga, it's a pretty, like when I was in my heyday, I was teaching maybe like 16 classes a week. And then being a father as well, so it didn't leave a ton of time to or energy to create art. But now my kid's getting older, it's just getting easier. And I just had a feeling like I haven't really had this feeling of excitement about art since I was maybe in my graduating year from art college, where I was like on fire and like painting for like 10 hours a day, like literally not even having a sip of water for 6 hours because you're just so engrossed in this stuff.
Yeah.
So I just started doing a few drawings that ended up in the book, and some that didn't end up the book. I hadn't quite figured out the technique yet. I was still like using pens that were too big and too clunky till I realized that most of it has to be done with the little tiny fine liner pen, and it's just going to be put in the time in, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, after I did a few, I just kind of could see that something was happening that was starting to have a momentum of its own.
Mhm.
Then I'm like, well, what if I make a collection of my art and then maybe put a few words in, just kind of like more, I was thinking more like poetry, or like I was kind of inspired by my kids' nighttime reading books where it kind of like
Oh,
bounces
right.
along, like, and then it ends like the cow went over the moon or whatever. Like I
Yeah.
wanted it to be kind of like non-traditional that way, but it ended up more like a book, but I wanted to keep it kind of light and just touch on things. So I started going through like my 60 books of all this esoteric information, writing down parts I thought were interesting, quotes and ideas. And the way I created the book was literally like a stack of paper this high of just chaos. And I had to try to like figure out topics in which would go in what. And I just knew that I just got to start putting the word things down, and I'll edit, and get it down
Yeah.
to something that makes sense. But I just knew, just trust in the process with the drawings and the writing. And you can, I just kept reading it and going over it until it made sense, hopefully to someone who's never read about any of this stuff, that they could pick it up and kind of know what I'm talking about. It's not too much out there lingo and just kind of talking like the way
Well,
we're talking, just like regular.
and for the listeners who are listening to this saying, okay, what is the Rosicrucian Order? Who are the Masons? And just a little overview of, they're both organizations that are all about the outside world can go around. It is about coming back into the heart to know thyself like you've never known thyself before, and helping you understand the journey you're on now, right?
Yeah, there's like the exoteric part of these orders and the esoteric
Yeah, but I mean, it's like
within.
and I know, like, you know, with the pandemic, a lot of people started fearing, and they're doing this and they're doing that, and it's like, regardless of what the humans are doing, the teachings are about coming home to self.
Or just
Like, let the outside world do its thing.
Yeah.
Where am I in, like, I always use the analogy of, like, I'm the buoy in the ocean. It doesn't matter if the ocean's tossing me calm, what, it doesn't matter. How am I in myself in this buoy in the big collective?
Yeah.
Is my internal just going around ready to erupt and crazy, or am I just calm and letting the ocean do whatever it needs to do to be calm?
Yeah.
And that's what I find coming out of the last 2.5 years is finding that inner calm.
Yeah.
Right? Finding that inner peace, that it doesn't matter if it's crazy at Costco. It doesn't matter if there's a traffic jam. It doesn't matter if there's the most incredible sunset. In my heart, there's peace.
Yeah. Well, that's it's tricky some days when there's a lot going on, right? But that's the ideal, right? That's hopefully where all of these studying and orders and money and time and energy put into these things is hopefully the payback is you're becoming a better person in the long run, a more useful person in society, right? So if you
and sorry, and just on a side note, both of these organizations are steeped in tradition and a gradual learning. It's like that spiral staircase. As you evolve and you get to know thyself better, you will rise. And so it's so important. It's so interesting that your book is the boat of Ra and all the Egyptians, because it all started there.
Yeah, the initial title was I wanted to call it the Boat of a Million Years, but I found out someone else had that title already. So this is
Oh,
the Boat
I
of
actually
Ra
like
is
this one.
the Boat of Ra is the Boat of a Million Years, but it's just another interpretation of the same thing. So
Yeah.
again, just wanting it to be accessible to people, the title, and not something that they're like, I already don't even know what this is.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Egyptian thing is kind of the glue that holds the whole book together. But if you don't mind, I could just kind of go through the table of contents, give people like an idea
Sure.
of some of the topics that we dwell on here. So first page. Second page. So you can see this drawing here
Yeah.
is more or less this drawing that's right here behind me.
Hmm.
There's the first page. So anyways, table of contents.
Yeah, but see, okay, so that first page, right, is perfect as know thyself, as you're on this, it looks like you're on this teeter-totter sitting in the middle. Where is my balance? Am I getting caught up in the craziness, or am I staying centered in my peace?
Yeah, I like this picture here of the boat of Ra. I
Yeah.
kind of reinterpreted that and redrew it as my own, and so it's kind of like my logo that I have on the back of the book and
Mhm.
on some of the on t-shirts. So
You're a walking advertisement.
yeah, that was one of the first parts. So the boat of Ra, the first chapter, I kind of talk about the symbolism of the boat of Ra going through the sky and all the hours of the day. And there's another boat, there's the nighttime boat, there's a daytime boat, and talk about that a lot. Then I go into the concept of Atlantis or Atlantean type ideas of cultures that may or may not have given a legacy of handed down technologies and
Mhm.
spiritualities to people like the Rosicrucians or the Freemasons and so on over time.
But it's even
touched-
coming up lots right now.
Yeah. So Atlantis is just kind of a blanket term, like maybe the Atlanteans probably didn't call themselves Atlanteans. They probably called themselves something else in their own language.
Well, no, but I mean, whether it's the Atlanteans, whether it's Pleiadians, whether it's, you know, Gaia
Lemurians,
itself, like whatever, right? It's
Yeah.
like all these other civilizations were here. We're not the first ones on the earth, right?
Yeah,
And it's about
becoming more obvious.
yeah, it's about the transition of where we want to go. And I
Yeah.
think this time in our history of human beings is the most incredible, scary, exciting time because we've never
It's all
been
here,
here
yeah.
before,
Yeah.
right? We've never been in the age of Aquarius.
Yeah. Are we officially in the age of Aquarius? Because some people say, oh, it happened 30 years ago. Some say it's
No, we're
a 200
officially,
year process, or as far as you know,
we're just born into it.
it's just getting going now. So
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, that for the longest time I always astrology, astronomy, I always like another time, another life, but I feel in the last few years it kind of has pulled me in whether I like it or not, and I have to start looking at some of these bigger cycles and influences and so on going on in the world, that maybe there is something to some of this stuff, right? So
Well, but I mean, you can just look at the pandemic and then look at the Spanish flu. The exact same astrological setting
okay,
of the
so
Spanish flu was exactly when the pandemic started.
yeah,
Believe it or not, it's just the way it is. It's
Yeah.
just like with all the crazy US election, whatever, was the exact time when they signed the declaration in 1776. Well, they're going through it again are you ready to step up and be the leaders? Or are you going to crumble and fall and let someone else, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, that's a side track. We were going there.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So,
let's get back to your book.
Within my Atlantis and beyond, I touch upon this topic called Tartaria, which is many people believe that our past has been kind of edited, like recent past in the last 200 or 300 years, like going back to the building of the Eiffel Tower and
Mhm.
some of this amazing architecture that we see scattered throughout the globe that seems like we don't have the technology to create there. Everyone's like, well, we could do it if we want, but no one actually does it because they just can't really do it like that anymore. we can build big skyscrapers, but not the intricate carved, like the free, like the idea of a masonry of buildings, physical buildings that have a more of a energetic or spiritual reason for that building existing. So anyway, I touch upon that. So it's a little controversial, but I think it's interesting what I talk about. So the next is the Neteru of nature. So the Neteru is what is often thought of as the gods in Egyptology or Sumerian or Greek or Roman. These concepts of elements of nature originally was what people were looking at. They're not worshiping a monkey or a pig or a lion, but like what the corresponding attributes of that are, like like breath, Shu is breath, right? Shu is one of the Egyptian netters. So I talk about that. I break them down in a way that, so it's just like simple little snippets, explanations of some of the popular netters, but Horus and Ra and Osiris and all these ones that some people may be familiar with, right? So that's just the gist of that. The great cycle is when I talk about the precession of the equinoxes and the zodiac and all that kind of corresponding. So like in ancient Egypt, there was times where like Amun, like the ram was in vogue and popular, and a lot of the art had the ram in it, right? So then there's other times where different netters became more popular and things shifted and the art took a different direction and so on. So that's the gist of that. So magic and science is like, I consider these things almost the same overlapping concepts. They say, Arthur C. Clarke said, basically, if you looked at a culture or a thing you didn't understand, you would call it magic, but in fact, it could be science you don't understand. It's kind of one and the same thing. If you were kind of more of a primitive society and you saw like a flashlight or something, you must be like, wow, what is this? But we're just like, that's just a flashlight. You just put a battery in, right? So
yeah,
it doesn't mean people would bow down to you as your a god, right?
yeah.
Which kind of led into the next topic was sacred geometry, this idea that there's an intelligence behind nature in snowflakes, in the way our fingerprints,
Absolutely.
the way our hair grows from the crown of our head to galaxies, to the way the water spirals down your toilet is all interrelated. If you just kind of takes a while to like kind of see it with different eyes, where you start to see the patterns and kind of for me, it's reassuring that there is some kind of intelligence that wants us to succeed or to like continue, or things to there's like, it's not just chaos.
Well, and I think about how the nature is so prevalent, is like that figure of our thumbprint is the same as the tree rings.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's the
right?
same.
And so it's like we are all one. The more we stop fighting it and getting to know ourselves and know that the oneness is all of us and all things,
Yeah, like
the better we'll be.
It's a phrase you can say, we're all one. It's kind of new agey, but to actually like get it, that it's like it's on a physical, like, or like physical and atomic level, whatever, it's all actually interrelated.
Well, saying it is mental, and being it is embodying it, being the
going with
the oneness of it all.
yeah. So I've been interested in sacred geometry for about 25 years before it was as trendy as it is now. But like, I started as an artist, just the aesthetics of how beautiful like a flower of life is just kind of calming to look at. But then the more you get into it, it gets quite mathematical and relates to musical harmonics and it goes and goes. And at a certain point, you're like, sound is math and math is music, and it's all kind of overlapping. It's mystical that way.
Well, and I remember growing up, and one of my teachers, I was struggling with this math stuff, and he asked if I played instruments, and I said no. Why? And he goes, because this is how you'd play the instrument. And
that's like your entry point into that.
Yeah, and so then like from that conversation, I started thinking about all the people in my school that were like super math and like really brainiac in the like sciences or whatever. And I'm like, is that why you're so good at playing instruments? Did you get that? You
Yeah.
get that segue that the rest of us that aren't playing the instruments aren't getting. But then it also talks about the universal one of music. It doesn't matter if you can understand the words, the melody, the harmony, everyone will understand. And I think that's where art also plays a part, because you might not get what the artist is trying to convey in some abstract thing, but you'll get the feeling.
Yeah. Regardless of what language you speak or religion you are,
Yeah.
you'll see a Vincent van Gogh painting or something, and everyone will have like, how did that guy see the world that way? Or like, it's so beautiful and unique, is so unique and so passionate. You can see the classic struggle of the artist genius in there, and like, you know, we all know kind of the story of what happened to him, but he's left behind these paintings that are like irreplaceable and worth so much money that people put such a value on them. It's like there may be $5 worth of oil paint on there, but it's worth $50 million because you can't get another one.
I know, but he's also a very tortured soul.
Yeah, but you wonder, like, if he had been super chill and nice, we wouldn't have these paintings that we have today. He would have had a decent life, but then where the art wouldn't have been there like that, right? So.
Well, and it's interesting because I know when my nephews were young, and I would get them, like, I'd be like, sensing like there's something off, but they're not talking, right?
Yeah.
And so I'd be like, let's go color. Why? Well, because I want to color. And I'd always get them to color mandalas.
Yeah.
And by the colors they used and how they integrated the blend, I was like, so what's going on here? Right? And it was a way of them kind of like, okay, I'm ready to share because I put it on paper. I've let it out in my colors.
Yeah. That gets into the like Carl Jung, like Jungian psychology. He was very into mandalas. And yeah, it's like just start drawing and using the colors, and then there's the inner world will start to reveal itself of what you're good or bad, what you're thinking about or anxiety about, or what's making you happy, or what's this inner fantasy world that you're starting to develop. But like the idea of like mandalas are typically like four-sided or circular or whatever, like it's already built in kind of balance is kind of the framework for it. So it can be a meditative process for people that don't even think they're mystics or artistic. They can start, whether you can draw a stick man or not, you can still draw straight lines and use circles to trace things and start creating something.
And this is important, like, especially if any parents are listening to this, because I was brought up that you took your finger along the black line so your colors didn't blend.
Okay. Yeah.
And it took me forever to let the crayon blend into another color.
Yeah, that was.
And you guys as artists were just like, who cares? Like, blend it, see what colors you can make. And I'd be like, oh my God, I know, they can't blend. They can't touch each other. And like, I mean, that in itself is a learning of, are we keeping ourselves in a box? Or are we expanding bigger than we could ever imagine?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but like we basically create the rules, or impose them on ourselves. But some artists that become famous, they're like, actually, I'm only going to use blue now, or like, I'm only going to paint things that I dream of in my dreams. I'll write them down, and that becomes something in the physical world, right?
Yeah.
Just like this book, like the book was, it happened in my mind first. I was like, like, could I make a book? Other people make books. Maybe I could make a book. And then it started happening. And then when I finally hit upload onto Amazon, it's like, it's a real thing in the world now that started as just a thought, right? So that's interesting, the whole journey that way, you know?
And I think out of the last couple of years of all, like, the heartache or whatever, that's one of the blessings that I feel that we are seeing is people have been able to take that pregnant pause and go, okay, what do I do with this time? How happy was I in my current life, to where do I want to expand to? And I find like a lot of people like are just changing careers, changing their life. Do I even want to live in the city? Right?
Yeah,
Do I want to live in the country? Do I want to, like,
I've always
um,
wanted to be by the ocean. I'm finally gonna go just do it and be by the ocean or by
and a lot of
water.
people are doing it. And
Yeah,
they've even like long before the pandemic. I mean, there's been movies of it, like, like they're in the rat race of New York and then they end up on this farm and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm home.
they can finally exhale and just be, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really listening to that inner call,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, like we're obviously have some training in that, so we can maybe stay on track
Yep.
during troublesome times. And I know a lot of people, maybe the loneliness and the isolation and you can just get addicted to watching Netflix every day and not
Yep.
exercising anymore. And just like for a lot of people, I think that's kind of way it played out in some ways. And then now that the world's kind of opening up again, it's hard to get going again when you're so used to just being
Yeah.
laying low,
Well, and that was my saving grace because I had promised myself I'd walk every day before the pandemic. And so
Yeah,
when the pandemic hit, I was just like, I walk every day, like whatever, right? And
yeah.
so yeah, and so some days it was just like, all your ski gear and everything, no one can find you, and you're like the Pillsbury Doughboy walking down the road, but I'm still walking.
Yeah, it's just the hardest
Right?
part is just getting out the door, or just
Yeah,
putting the yoga mat down is sometimes the hardest part. And once I go, it'll start doing itself. But sometimes I'll find so many excuses to just like, oh, I should go put these books away, or clean this thing, or start making lunch or something instead of
see, and
just
that's
getting it done.
fascinating to me because as an instructor of 17 years, isn't it just automatically ingrained in your body to just get on the mat?
Um, it's a process, because it's like you have to like crack the whip on yourself. There's like no one else to do it. So some days it comes easy and some days you gotta drag yourself through a little bit. But once by the time you're done, you're gonna feel blissful and great. But sometimes your monkey mind wants to just create distractions or something. Um,
Interesting.
what maybe what I would consider an off yoga day, would some people would be happy to have a practice that looks like that. But for me, it's like I wasn't breathing right, or I was too much of my mind distracted,
Oh,
and it wasn't coming as easy, right? So
yeah.
but yeah, it's a process. And like I feel like I put the time in 10 years ago when I was really doing it like vigorously all the time, and I'm still seeing some of the benefits from that. So I just kind of like more like maintenance. I just got to like kind of maintain
Yeah.
it. But the big openings and the things happened like 10 years ago when I had really awesome teachers and stuff, and people in a whole more of a community that kind of nurtures you in that, right? So
Yeah.
I get some people need to be in a studio with other like-minded people. It's just kind of carry each other along, versus
Hmm.
not everyone has the gumption to just do it on their own, like indefinitely.
Yeah.
So there's good and bad things about being by yourself, and also being with a group is also just the same with the Rosicrucians or the Masons or whatever. It's like
Hmm.
sometimes that group energy makes you excited about it, and sometimes you get frustrated with some of the personalities in those groups, and you're like, I'm
Yeah.
just
Well,
pull back and do it on my own now, right? So
and like speaking of the meditation on your own is awesome, but as a collective, same thinking group, talk about flying.
yeah,
Like
it
some days
feels
it was just like, holy cow, where the heck did I go? But then you also have to be careful because you can get into that, I want that high again. I want that journey again. And it's like,
to
no, because
recreate that every
every
time.
journey is for that day of meditation.
Yeah.
Trying to recreate what you had or try to get to that place that you went kind of has that, egoic, like, oh, I can do that. I can do that. And that's kind of how we get into that downfall, right?
The attachment of it always being the same in a world of flux and change is
Yeah.
can cause some like suffering.
Yeah.
If you're like,
Just a tad.
I'll never get older, my body will always look exactly the same, and
Yeah.
I'll always be this kind of strength or this kind of flexibility, or be able to be a master meditator and just drop into it really quick. And some days your mind, it takes longer to to calm things down, right? So
Well, and so that's interesting when you're saying about, like being hard on yourself about like, oh, I didn't get the stretch I could have, but um is that because you're trying to be human instead of just being in the flow?
um I guess when you're a teacher, or like you're not just a practitioner, you're uh kind of more like the ideal, or like someone who's trying to inspire people. So you expect more from yourself than someone else, maybe. So you hold yourself to a slightly higher level, I guess, so maybe we don't cut ourselves as much slack as we could, but also the flip is, that you do have that inner fire, and you can, when you get back in the groove, it kind of comes back, and you're like, I'm back in this familiar place again, right? So
Yeah. But are you okay? So this is just in general, because
yeah,
I was thinking this the same with even just with my walking of like, oh, like I just didn't get very far today. Like I just, like my body just, and I'm like, thank you for the comments. Be blessed and grateful you're able to walk. Like just shut down the monkey mind, shut down the, well, 10 years ago, 10 years ago, your body was younger. You didn't
yeah,
have as much life happen, right? Like
and-
you didn't have kids, you didn't have this, you didn't have,
yeah,
right? And so, like maybe 10 years ago, your body was better, but it's accepting where you
it's
are to now.
relative, yeah.
Yeah.
It's also like no one's actually watching and keeping track of this. I saw you were kind of slacking up farther past that tree. Now you're stopping. Like, no, everyone's so involved with their life and their own little things going on that they're not what we think someone may be like observing. That it's just like poof, it's gone, and only we're worried about tracking our progress that way, right? So
Yeah.
um, it's interesting. Minds are interesting. That's why people have been working on them for thousands of years, trying to get this thing under control, right?
Well, I know it was funny because the other day I was walking and this lady kind of blew past me and I was like, am I even walking? And I'm like, but she brought me into presence.
Yeah.
Because I was just like in my own head and just like,
yeah.
you
Sometimes like, who am I talking to? It's like
yeah.
I'm having an argument like with the angels and devils in my head, and like, this is ridiculous. Like, this is funny. This is humorous.
Yeah. And I mean that's all part of it, right? That's all part of being kind and gentle
Yeah.
to ourselves,
Yeah.
right? Is when the monkey mind is there, you just like, thanks for sharing. You can go away now.
Just like let it pass through. Thanks for visiting. We'll see you later.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it does say like, pay attention. It's like, thank you. But and before I learned that thanks for sharing, I just get caught up in it and caught up into it. And then you'd be like, okay, well, maybe I'll meditate. Oh, and it just like gets huge. It's like, really? Like, really? And so that's where like as a person who's coming into the mysticism or meditation or their own yoga practice is finding that grace and ease with self.
Yeah.
That you're not going to start with where someone that 10 years has been doing it every day for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? You're not going to be as bendy, flexy, or as adaptable to some of the things. But say you showed up.
Yeah.
You're showing up for you. You're showing up to be a better person. You're showing up to what is the universe presenting in front of you.
Yeah. Like you can be super bendy and strong in yoga, but if you leave the yoga studio and you're out in traffic and you're flipping people off and swearing, then the yoga didn't really work, right? You shouldn't snap back into road rage. Minutes later, it should you could be like stiff and enjoying the group dynamic and breathing, and you're actually doing better yoga than someone who's just nailing the asanas in a certain way, but still just dealing with so much stuff that they haven't let go, right?
Yeah.
So it's all I used. Maybe there was a time that it was important for me to learn that next asana and get stronger, but now I just my goal is to just feel good when I'm done, just feel better than when I begin, right? So that's, if I can get that, then it was a successful yoga practice, right?
So do you think you'll go back to teaching?
Right
event?
now I'm talking with a place called Junction 9 in Inglewood here, and
Okay.
I'm on their sub list, and I've just been starting to have that beginner mind again. I'm just going to classes like a regular, right, and just checking out the classes and the styles and just being part of the scene. So yeah,
Awesome.
I'm totally open to the teaching a few classes here and there, but I'll never go back to running around teaching 16, 18 classes a week. That was just kind of, that was fun when you're young, but with family and stuff now, it's just not doable. Yeah. So
Does your family do yoga with you?
my wife Hannah is a yoga instructor as well.
Okay.
She was actually quite popular back in the day, and my kids play around with it a little bit here and there, but they're they think it's all right.
Oh, well, so many schools have it in part
Yeah,
of phys ed.
yeah, they've had like teachers come in for a week and do like a
Yeah.
week long thing, and so I think there's a certain ages like where you can get serious about it, and when you're young and there's video games and friends, it's hard to stay the focus, right? But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I've seen yoga like because this underground thing that used to be like in the 70s, it was like hippies only did it and vegetarians and stuff, and then it got quite
The tree
popular.
huggers.
Yeah, and then like seeing it split into different like hot yoga and all these different kinds of yoga, and then to the point now where it's like it's definitely on the decline. Like all these studios churned out like hundreds of yoga teachers. It's like we got so many yoga teachers now, and now you've got someone who's been teaching for 20 years and someone who graduated last week making the same money, or like
Oh, yeah.
the experience levels are quite different, but to the person walking in off the street, they don't really know the difference. So that's frustrating, but
They did that to a lot of like physiotherapists, massage therapists.
it
Like,
just glutted it with
oh,
too many because there was money to be made. Like
yeah.
a lot of
Because I
studios
always
are
say,
charging
I don't
five
care what,
thousand dollars for teacher training, right? So that's
yeah,
their keeps them afloat, right?
yeah.
Um, but now yoga is split to like there's hot yoga, there's Kundalini yoga, there's traditional Iyengar, slow props and stuff, and then but now people want to have boxing and spin with their membership. So in my mind, it's going to dilute the yoga experience if the yoga is
Yeah.
kind of an afterthought, like just a little snippet of the thing that you want to check off the box that you burned your calories, you got your little bit of enlightenment in there. So
Okay,
it's
so
definitely different.
this is interesting. Like, I didn't know the conversation was going to go this way, but it's interesting because I know people who are like totally into fitness, they're doing training, they're doing whatever. And it's like, why would you go for a 5-hour hike if you can get the same workout in an hour at the gym? It's like, because you're out doing something with
The nature,
people.
the nature, the
Like,
nature
yeah,
medicine.
like, and then it was like, so I was thinking about the people that were having this conversation, and I was like, well, they don't like getting dirty,
Because
right? So yoga is like clean, you can do it inside, it's like whatever. But it's like, well, no, but you can go stretch with a tree. You might get your socks dirty, but that's okay. Like,
we have washing machines in Canada. We can get the dirt off.
yeah. Well, and it's like I've even since the pandemic started working with autistic children and horses.
Yeah.
And I was brought up around horses. I had a horse, and it's just amazing seeing like some of the people come in and they gravitate to a certain horse.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you had a stressful week. And you can just see they just sit there with the horse, and it's just like their body just relaxes. Like their shoulders come out of
Their
their
shoulders
ears.
just like drop
Yeah.
the earrings. And
Yeah. And
nice.
it like it's so cool watching it, right? Because as you can see the energetics of it, like, and you can see that each horse has a different personality and
That
caring.
attracts certain different people, gravitate towards certain
Yeah.
horses or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. That's
So it's very
I
cool.
guess like back to the oneness of all things, like just like
Mhm.
people can be a certain way, animals can be a certain way too, right? To have a
Yeah.
personality or likes and dislikes or
Well, I
different.
mean, it's even like the sad part is like how many dogs are getting sent back to the shelter because people are now too busy now the pandemic's come over.
Oh,
And
is
I'm
it?
like,
Okay.
but I'm like, that dog picked you,
Yeah.
right? There's
Yeah.
a reason you have that dog,
Yeah.
right?
And, an agreement signed on cosmic level that you have to follow through on or
Yeah.
be a part. because
So,
they definitely bring stuff to your life, like gives you a structure. Like I'll go for a dog walk, and like otherwise I'd just sit around in my pajamas all day long and not do anything. Right?
doing your dots for the
Yeah,
next book.
yeah, or doing the dots. Yeah,
Yeah.
the
So
dots will be
like,
coming back.
so that smaller picture, you can see which way. Like, how long would that have taken you?
Let's do one that's better. I'll bring this one. So,
Oh, wow.
so this one would have taken about like 2 or 3 days off and on of just, I kind of sketch it in, and then I start like trying to do the airbrush technique of like I just keep dotting over certain areas, another layer until if I step 10 feet back, it starts to take the form on.
You got that done in 2 days?
2 or 3 days, yeah. So
Wow. I
it's
would
like
have
people
thought
ask
way
me
longer.
how long did something take you, and it's like, well, maybe that oil painting took 2 days or something, but it's taken me 20 years to have the confidence to be able to paint that quickly. Over
That's
time, like
true. That's true.
it's like a lawyer or a doctor. It's like, wow, that like you charge $5,000 for that knee replacement. It only took you half an hour. You should only get paid for a half an hour. But it's like, well, 10 years of school, and you didn't see the 500 operations before this operation, right? So
Yeah. That's so
that's
true.
with art. At a certain point, you can just know that you're on track a lot quicker, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes you're off track and you want to destroy it or something. Like it's just like it can be it should be a joy, and when it's going well, it's amazing. You look back and go, how did I make that? Or I don't even remember making that. It just kind of, it feels almost like a channeling of something just comes through you. But other days where you didn't listen to that little intuitive voice where you're like, I shouldn't have used that blue pen, and now I use the blue pen, and now it's gone in a whole different direction, and I don't know if I like it anymore, and I'm just getting frustrated with something that should have been a joy to do, right? So but it happens less and less when you're in the zone. If you're creating art all the time, the little glitches happen less and less until you're mostly making what you consider quality stuff,
So was it you that was talking about using like a different colored canvas? Or was it
I'm not
somebody
sure.
else?
Yeah, there's just so many different ways to approach
Well,
things.
no,
Like,
yeah, but like I read somewhere it's like, who ever thought we have to always start with a white canvas? And they were starting either with blue or red, and whatever was happening was a total different dynamic. Because
the
like you take a blue pen on a red canvas, it's a totally different color than on a white canvas.
yeah, for sure. It like the group of 7 famous Canadian painters that
Mhm.
painted in nature. Emily Carr was kind of on the outsides of that group, but anyways, they often would prime the canvas like red or something first. So then they
Okay.
do all the trees, and little snippets of the red poke through and complement the green of the trees and stuff, which is just a really great tool. Because sometimes it's still like a white canvas is so overwhelming. As soon as you make a mark, it's already pressure like to make this thing to come to
Interesting.
completion. But when you've got something already done, then you're just kind of filling in the pieces, or it just sometimes can be helpful to not have that glaring white canvas staring at you, wanting you to do something.
Interesting. Because
So
I've done a couple of the paint nights because I don't like I have
I used to
creativity,
teach
but
painting.
art isn't one of like I don't find it is. I can play, but right. And it was
Yeah,
really interesting because the second one I actually think the painting turned out better,
yeah,
right? But I actually also didn't have both eyes because I had eye surgery, and so I only had one eye, and I was like, but I prefer the painting.
yeah.
It has more depth perception with one eye than I had with both eyes. And I went,
Huh.
well, that's odd. Like,
Well, maybe it just made you really have to like focus, narrow down your focus, like laser like attention to detail or something with just one
well,
eye.
yeah, like it was, yeah. Or maybe I was more relaxed because I've already been there, done that, like whatever. Like it was
Yeah,
just nice to be out, like someone picked me up and I could go out, right? Like,
yeah.
but yeah, so okay. So what are some final thoughts of this journey that you've morphed into? Are you going to become a book
I
more and more, or
I have ideas I thought, okay, I'm taking a break, but then I'm already thinking of, now that I've seen the process and it's not as intimidating as I thought it was before,
okay.
that I want to do another one that's just like more just to focus on my art, or maybe just a few little poetic words scattered through it. And I also want to do like more of a kids sacred geometry coloring book type idea. I know it's been done before, but my take on it. So in the next year or so, maybe I'll start getting that going on and behind the scenes. And I haven't pursued how to promote like I talk like we're talking about the book now, and I tell friends about it on Amazon, and but I need to like get it out there more, just get it known, so
Yeah.
this is a fun way to chat about it, so we'll hopefully share this on Facebook and so on. So yeah, other things will be
definitely.
coming at some point. Yeah.
Definitely.
And I've almost got I just got to build a small website for the t-shirt idea, and so hopefully the next couple of months there'll be a way to, if you like the art in the book and my style of art, you can buy some clothes that have some esoteric, interesting, different kind of imagery on it, from Tibetan things or Egyptian things, or but now that I've kind of created this formula of the dots, I'm already moving into like Greek things, or like I could do Mayan things or Polynesian things. I want to kind of like do a little tribute to all the different mythological cultures around the world in a way, if that makes sense.
Well, and I think the timing of it's perfect, because we are kind of going, we're in the abyss of, well, what's this new world look like? Well, what do we want to bring from the past to the future? Like, what can we learn from the Egyptians? What can we learn from the Greeks? What can we learn from, right? And kind of put that better melting pot of the best of all creations.
Yeah. Like for some reason, like in the last 5 years, like Vikings have become really popular again, right? Like whether it's in music or all these shows about Vikings. And I know it's like pretty violent and crazy, but it's also kind of based on historical things. But it's just interesting that that's being, whether it's consciously being put out there, or if it's just happening because of the collective unconscious is just reimagining Vikings, what they because they couldn't have all been crazy murdering maniacs, because some of them were seafaring people and craft people making beautiful boats and so on. So
what Hollywood's bringing out is the darkness of it.
Yeah, there couldn't have been that as
and
much
I think that it
as
might
Hollywood
be
shows.
it might be part of the crumbling of the dark.
Yeah.
Like, really, you really want to watch like how many episodes, how many series of this dark, right? Rather than seeing like the fairies, like right? And
but most of the Vikings were like farmers. They wanted to just keep going to Greenland or Canada to get some land to like feed their family and be happy and stop getting like attacked by swords and stuff. They really, I think they really wanted peace and to like do their thing. And
but don't the farmers now want that?
Oh, I can't get into that. That's a whole nother.
No, but I know it's a whole other ball of wax, but I'm just saying they just want to plow their fields. They want to grow what they want to grow. They don't want to have dictatorship. But yeah, that's a whole other ball of wax, and we're not going to go
left alone too, right?
Yeah, we don't want to go down that road. But okay, so just say again. So it's the 25th to the 27th.
Yeah. So the 25th will be kind of the opening. Well, I'll be there all days, but that'll be like hopefully most people come out for that. So I'm going to be selling the books. So if you want like a signed book, I could sign it. If you want,
and this is for Calgary people only, unless you want to fly in for this.
If you wanted to fly in from Edmonton, you could also be welcome. But the idea is that people can have an original illustration from the book. So you could get the book and you get the drawing that's in the book. You can get it framed or unframed. Plus, I'll have some of my oil paintings there, that kind of greatest hits of a few oil paintings. And but I know like the economy is a little tight right now, so hopefully I'll be like $100, $150 items, nothing too crazy, right? So just lots of
when
little.
People want something, they find a way.
Yeah,
doesn't matter the economy.
Yeah.
And the best way to find you is probably on Facebook right now until your website's up.
I'm on Rob Yoga on Instagram, but just Rob Nicholls on Facebook, or Rob Yoga @yahoo.ca if you want to just email me directly. But the show is once again just on the 25th to the 27th at 321 50th Ave Southeast in Calgary. It's right attached to what's called the Christine Clausen Gallery. So it's between McLeod Trail and Blackfoot Trail, kind of close to the Blackfoot Inn, if you know where that part of town is. So
Okay.
that's kind of your
50th Avenue,
marker.
right? Southeast?
321 50th Ave Southeast, yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, I'll try to get these all in the show notes for you.
So
People.
all are welcome. You don't have to be an art expert or a Rosicrucian. You could just be a
Yeah.
fan of fun stuff, right?
Well, and that's why I always say I'm not the artist, but I'm the dealer. I can say, hey, I know an artist that can do that for you. Right. And I just think it's funny how many artists are coming into my life this last 6 months.
It's an interesting job being like, I feel sometimes people can talk about my art in a way that I can't because I'm too close to it. So they can
Mhm.
see things maybe I can't see, or patterns, or like, this is
Mhm.
what I think this may be actually about, right? So it's interesting to have someone else hype it up and articulate it maybe even better than the artist can sometimes, right?
Well, and I don't know if you know about like Gene Keys or the human design. Like it's
What?
that's actually like it's two different systems, like Gene Keys or human design, and
Okay.
it's actually in my chart. Like I am the dealer of art.
You're meant to be.
Yeah, like I
Yeah,
can
so-
supposedly I have the artist in me, but my forte is like taking people's art.
Or organizing the disorganized artists.
Yeah, yeah.
So that it
If
can
I'm
be
not
like
in
a-
that disorganized space, so.
Nice.
So it's been a pleasure. I'm so
Yeah.
excited to see your artwork, and I'm glad that you've gotten this book out. It's very exciting, and yeah.
Namaste. Thank you so much. That was fun. And look forward to seeing it up on Facebook or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Do it.
Thank you.